Hey there, Offgoers, Muse here, and this week's episode of the Going Off podcast features a Patreon-requested album review. If there's an album you want reviewed on the podcast, pledge $40 to either patreon.com/rapcritic or patreon.com/muse.
Did you have a quote, Muse, or?
I did not, actually.
All right. Well, every episode we start with a quote of something, usually a rap song, because So I mean, if there's anything you've wanted to just start a show with, you could do that if you want, or I could do mine.
Do I have a rap quote right now to start the show with?
Yeah.
Let me think. A little to the left, a little uplifting. There we go. Half bar. That's a strong half bar, too. If that was like a list of top 12 motivational half bars, that's somewhere in the top 6. A little to the left, a little uplifting. Yeah. Lupe Fiasco.
I dig it.
Always come through in the clutch.
You were talking about Lupe Fiasco, one of his underrated albums was Tetsuo and Youth.
Yeah.
And I would definitely agree with you on that.
That's, man, it's, the industry is an amazing force if it's on your side. It's a detrimental force if it's not. And, they had such a fractured, fucked up situation for so long that it's amazing that Lupe even decided to put that project out, because that project is really like an art piece. Like that project,
Definitely.
Like the songs he put out leading up to that project weren't on that project. Like it was like next to it with Ty Dolla $ign, old school.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, what the hell is this?
Right. It was like old school with Ed Sheeran. It was just the entire Atlantic machine.
Dude, I remember when those came out and I was like, wait, really? That's really going to be okay. And he made music videos for him, so I was like, all right, I guess this is what he's doing now. I mean, next to it, like, I get why he made it, but it's like, that's not a song I'm going to listen to frequently. You know what I'm saying? And then when he came out with the Tetsuo and Youth, I was like, yo.
Right.
It's like, all right, fuck whatever other shit he was doing.
And what's wild is like, that project we would never heard Tetsuo and Youth as is if Anonymous didn't threaten Atlantic.
See, I hadn't heard about that specifically.
They threatened Atlantic Records. They said, Atlantic Records, you have 24 hours to announce a release date for Lupe Fiasco's Tetsuo and Youth. Either that, and if not, we will have a full-scale attack on your organization and on each of your executives.
How is it just that one in particular? Because there's albums that we've been talking about waiting around forever for, and it's like, do people just not care? Do people just not care so much about those?
Lupe's been he's been counterculture for a long time. And not when I say counterculture, I mean, I guess he's been outspoken about his beliefs. He's a day one Occupy Wall Streeter. So the day Occupy Wall Street started, he was probably the first celebrity, period. But he was out there.
And he's also possibly the only rapper who spoke against Obama.
It depends on how you feel about Kanye. It depends on how you feel about Ron Fest. A lot of guys, there was some cats from Chicago who was pretty critical of Obama, but nobody went as far as to protesting.
They're all from Chicago, so they probably know first,
Right. I had another piece I was working. I did a Kanye piece that looked at like Kanye and Obama, and it was really supposed to be Chicago and Obama and Chicago rappers. And there was kind of a divide, like in Chicago. Like there's a lot of people who really supported, obviously, Obama for all these awesome reasons, but there were people who would go on record and be wild critical, and nobody was more critical than Lupe. And I thought that was, such a Lupe Fiasco thing. Like,
what's fascinating about it is that it's like he went after the wrong president. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, everyone's going after Trump right now, but it's like, of course, because he's this white guy who's obviously pandering to, the white nationalist audience with his rhetoric. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's the easy thing to go after. But what's harder to go after is like, okay, who's this person? Yeah, we still see this person as, black and someone who's supposed to help us, but like, is he really? And is he just perpetuating, the wars and all the stuff that's gone down before? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, it's going to be hard for one person to be able to change all the things that, American imperialism has done anyway. But still, it's like, God damn, we're already starting on this. I just used the word American imperialism. We're already starting off on a pretty serious note right now.
Lupe's, he took a position that everybody's still on the same team regardless of who you vote for, right? American imperialism is bigger than any 4-year, 8-year term. And so I think that's the principles where he came from. I think it's ironic in the most unfortunate sense, though, that the number of people that Obama pardoned, all the nonviolent drug offenders that he pardoned. And I think that's the unfortunate irony of being as, vocal about what he felt the American presidency, as not as much Obama in this sense, but the American presidency, which is what I really feel like he was talking about when he was saying Obama's the biggest terrorist. He was talking about how the American presidency is. I get that. I just think it's ironic that he did that, to your point, with Obama in office, and Obama lets out like 1,200 nonviolent drug offenders. Like he pardons 1,200. Like, I don't know if that's something you could have the foresight to see, but I also think that there's probably if there's one president that might do something crazy, like let out a whole bunch of people who shouldn't be in jail, or people who are in jail for drugs, or let out more people in jail than ever, it's probably the first black guy. And so,
that's a good point.
Looking at that in that context, like. What did that mean for people that Lupe may know? I think everybody has family or friends who are in unfortunate situations. My uncle's been in jail pretty much my entire life, prison rather than jail. So, I don't know how that could have played with people that he may know and love that are in that situation. And being that he is a prominent artist, someone who is getting compared to, Tribe Called Quest and Golden Air, bringing back lyricism. The guy who made a song about a project building turned into a robot and winning a Grammy. Projects produced by Jay-Z and Kanye West and Pharrell are all the way on it. You never know how that, being in a better situation with Obama could have affected people that, Lupe really cares about that are close. Just given what Obama did on his way out. I mean, we saw George Bush pardon, John Forte. John Forte's high school friends got him out of jail, and he was walking through the airport with $100 million of liquid cocaine or whatever it is. That's the thing I think about when I think about what you said. Maybe this was the wrong president.
Yeah. And also, hip hop, hip hop has been talking about the idea of being like a black president for years now. Like just black culture in general. And hip hop being a part of black culture is just like a thing that's sort of a part of it. So when you have someone who fills that role, it's harder to go against them because it's something that has been such a cornerstone of American black fantasy. You know what I mean? Of just the idea of like, wow, if one of us was in power, but then going like, okay, even though one of us is in power, this guy's not really doing 100% what would be best for the black community. Or he's not focusing on it as much, I feel. Or he's still, still in charge of these wars that are still sending poor black and poor brown and poor white people, to go fight. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not the radical change that would best benefit a black, the black community. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I think about all the people that were affected by Martin Luther King, or just seeing Martin Luther King, regardless of whether or not you might have felt, like this struggle was necessarily yours. Just the idea that someone could mobilize 1 million people to march on Washington, or that someone could, organize a bus boycott that actually spark some sort of real change in their community, regardless of whether or not, you agree with Martin Luther King, you like the fact that he was cheating on his wife, or whatever those rumors were, or whatever. Like, I think the idea of Obama inspired a lot of really great ideas, or inspired a lot of people to be able to push further in things that they want to achieve. I think maybe our expectations might be misplaced if we think that one guy's going to change the world in 4 to 8 years, So when people say, I don't know what Obama did for black people, well, he let more black people out of jail than anybody. That's one thing. Two, he definitely inspired people in ways that Michael Jordan Maybe. You know, is he the closest one? Legit Jay-Z, Michael Jordan, Diddy? Like, these are our icons, right? Biggie, Pac. Like, these are... You have to go back to black and white TV to go find Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass, Nat Turner. You have to read books and all these things that we can't necessarily see or have a direct connection with. No disclaimer and no disrespect. Obviously, you know, you can't contextualize the impact that they've had on Black life and Black America and the progress we've had. But let's keep it real, man. Why tell somebody a story if you can show them? You know, our images are only as powerful as what we can see a lot of times, which is why it's better to put out a music video than just a song out, you know, like you want to do both, you know? And Obama's, you know, inspired more people to think past their limitations, whether those are psychological or literal, than I'm willing to bet anybody else that's been alive since we've been alive.
Was there much criticism of Clinton in the early 90s? Because
there was
actually. There? Yeah. Okay. 2 clips I've recently seen from him. It's funny. He just, like, one after another puts his fucking foot in it. The one was a debate when he was running for office the first time, and he was asked about what his solution for inner city crime was, and his answer was more police. And when he was speaking on the Million Man March on Washington, he praised the march and the marchers and all the organizers, but still had to throw in there, you know, we still got to focus on what's causing the inner city black on black crime and the very real threat that is the very rational fear that white people have of those communities.
Whoa, did he say that?
Yeah!
Oh my god.
I was like, this sounds like something fucking Trump would say today. But it was like, I remember, and I don't even know where this started, but I remember there was the in-joke that Clinton was the, quote, first black president. And I don't know where that started or what the point of that was.
I think it's because he
went on Arsenio Hall.
Exactly.
Because he had the fucking dog pound behind him, that's all it takes.
That's basically it. You know, I think that's how bad, I think it's really how bad Reagan was that set that up.
Yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
Like, Reagan was, you know, he was given the real Rick Ross crack. You know what I'm saying? Like Reagan was so bad. Right? I think, but yeah, you have like Pac, Bill Clinton, Mr. Bob Dole. You're too old to understand the way the game's sold. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the same thing. Like, I'm thinking, like, you know, think about how far we've come. Like, even the fact that you would even go hang out with black people made black people feel like you're the first black president because you could play the saxophone. You're the first black president.
That's like a clue into just how bad it was. It's like someone is throwing us a bone. Fucking finally.
Jazz. Look at that. Saxophones. He's
Remember
black.
that? Remember that thing that used to be controversial but now isn't? Yeah, I'm participating in that.
Right. You know, I think that, but looking back, like, you have this guy who's a Democrat in the South, which is odd on its own. He's from Arkansas. You know, like, all those states make money off free labor. And they had so much money that was going into the private prison system post-Reagan as well. Bush won one of the campaigns that people really remember about the first Bush's run was the Willie Horton campaign, which he used against whoever the white dude was, the Democrat. They said he was soft on crime. And so, you know, that's one thing you couldn't afford to be in the 90s because they were making too much money off of putting people in jail and making them work for free, which we still do.
And part of that was, pushing back against gangster rap and saying, look at these criminals promoting this lifestyle.
You know, it's really funny that you happen to mention that. There's a radio disc jockey down here. He's been on for decades, and he had said back when, during the primaries last year, he had Hillary on, and during the interview, he mentioned, hey, you know, I had your husband on when he was running for office the first time, and I asked him what his favorite rap group was, and he said NWA.
That's so crazy.
At least Hillary had the foresight to be like, I like Hamilton. You can't argue that. Like, okay, yeah, I can see her liking Hamilton, but she wasn't like, I don't know, man. I'm like, J. Cole's cool, but
Yeah, what are you
I don't know.
bumping in
Like,
the
I think
whip,
Kendrick's
Hillary
a little
Clinton?
overrated. Like, they'd be like, whoa, Hillary, what the hell is this?
Hamilton was breaking down science.
A lot of people ask me stupid fucking questions. A lot of people think that what I say on the show or what I talk about, in my episodes, that I actually, think it in real life or believe in it. Or if I say that, somebody's whack as shit, that I'm actually, that I actually believe in it. Well, shit, if you believe that, then I'll kill you. You want to know why? Because I'm on the Going Off podcast with Rap Critic and News, and we got a special guest today. the company man. Yo, Justin Hunte, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I was about to be like, because I'm a criminal. Shit got me hyped, man. Your close way better than the half bar I dropped. That was perfect. We setting the tone.
We got a Patreon request this week for a Lecrae album, and I just happened to watch your Christians and Christian hip-hop video, like, right before we started.
Oh, work.
Darren, were you familiar with Lecrae before the request?
I'd heard that he was like, from Texas and stuff like that. I was like, oh, you don't really hear about rappers from Texas right now. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, he's doing his thing. But I was like, I'm not really going to go out of my way to listen to it. But, that's cool that he exists in his space, because I had this stigma so long about Christian rap, because the stuff that I had used to listen to years ago, that I had heard, it was just like, this is whack. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so it's like years have gone by, and so that stigma sort of stuck with me. And so whenever I heard someone say, "Oh, yo, you need to peep out this Christian rapper," I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure," because of that stigma. And I kind of felt like a douche after I listened to. Well, first it was. Can I first ask you what? How old are you, Justin?
36. Just turned 36 in August.
What is your like? This is when I got into hip hop year.
Got into hip hop. God, there's so many levels to that.
This is like the year when you were listening to the music that came out, and that was your year of music. You know what I mean?
That's a loaded question too. I'd like to say birth. My parents were actually my parents were actually
you're
into
really
rap.
Gonna go with that? You gonna go with that answer?
Yeah, I guess by the time I was 5, I was like submerged in it. Like just between my parents but also my older cousin Shah, who was like feeding me albums literally since I, popped out. So I always thought that whatever Shah thought was cool was cool. If there was a year where I said, okay, I was old enough to go buy my own music, like I guess if that's how we're looking at it, then like 9 or 10, my money, pretty much every dollar I made in elementary school, middle school, and high school went to some combination of rap CDs, polo shirts, and video games, and movie tickets. That was pretty much, I probably spent, 10 years worth of income, no matter what level, on some version of that. And then later on, I'd add like Black and Milds and like Miller High Life or whatever. But then I'll tell you this was big for me. When I moved to, I studied abroad in Amsterdam, junior year in college. And, that was my first time living with people who were, where everyone was from a different country, essentially. It wasn't a exchange program as much as it was, we all lived in this flat, excuse me, in the middle of Amsterdam in the city center on the Prinsengracht, like a block from the Anne Frank house. And all had wildly different views and opinions and hip-hop favorites, on everything that was happening in the world. This was 2001, so this was also... 9/11 happened when I was abroad. And so that's a huge thing to happen on its own, but then also being in another country at the same time. So I became hyper aware of, global issues really for the first time. It was my first time out of the country, so it was my first time seeing how people from other countries viewed America, the United States. Truthfully, it was my first time realizing that everybody didn't have G.I. Joe on TV. I thought everybody had G.I. Joe. No, he was the real American hero for a reason. Like, he wasn't the real Dutch hero. So, like, these are all like brand new thoughts while I'm, and I'm sitting here super surprised that America got attacked and everyone else was just kind of like, it's about time, homeboy. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, but
join
like,
the club,
right? And so, but on that exact day, for example, the Blueprint dropped too, and I'd already had a half a day. You know, so I'd already had the project, riding around on my bike, went to the coffee shop, John blazing. It was amazing. And then, so there's a real big hip hop anniversary that happened at that same time because that was a great, great, great project. But overall, I found myself in conversation with people who were, you know, rocking with different types of rap that I was never that big of a fan of. Like, I was not the biggest De La Soul fan. Like, I respected them. I liked everything that people liked about them. I knew that people liked them a lot. I knew that, you know, they were very original in a lot of things. I just didn't. That's not the type of rap that I was really into. I like Bone Thugs and Harmony. You know what I'm saying? I liked Ice Cube. You know, I liked, you know, Outkast. I like Mace. You know, so I wasn't listening to like as much, you know, De La back then. I wasn't really listening to like, you know, a lot of experimental stuff. And so I had all these people from all these other places who had different favorites and could really talk about them. Like really, 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 really talk about them. Like in like nuance and detail down to liner notes and like influences. And, you know, it made for some really deep debates, like deep debates, like trying to explain, you know, why Bill Collector Bone, Mr. Bill Collector, is incredible to someone from Malaysia whose English is their fourth language. Forces you to get good at your vocabulary. You know what I'm saying? Like they can barely keep up with the flow in the first place, you know? Like, so, you know, those type of conversations put me in a different place. And at the same time, I was taking an art history class there, and my art history professor, you know, it was a Dutch art history class. I loved it. And our professor was like, yeah, if you really like art history, you should take a painting class. And that's why that'll help you realize how difficult it is to show perspective like Rembrandt, how incredibly difficult or pioneering it was for art world when Vermeer was able to show motion, you know. And I thought about that in the context of hip hop, and that also gave me another way to get closer to it, you know. And in the years after that, I ended up moving to New York, and I would write rhymes on the subway, never with the intent of being an MC, but really just listening to my art history professor to understand how difficult MCing is. So, which helped, you know, which has really sparked how I ended up talking about rap, writing about rap in the first place, because that was never really a goal. But that, I'd have to probably say 2001 was probably the year where I started really looking at hip hop and its connection to the world around us. Prior to that, I really just thought it was something, I looked at it as something I really loved. I was really into. My friends were into it. It was everything cool. My older cousin, who I thought was the coolest person in the world, he loved it. So that means I should love it too. But 2001 was the year when I started thinking about how, you know, you hear a great American tale like Jay-Z's Blueprint 1 happened on 9/11, you know, like what kind of context that really puts, you know, the music that we value in when there's an appreciation and a connection with people who don't speak English, who aren't from your country, and they still have that same love and appreciation for it too. So, long-winded answer, I'd probably say 2001.
The song was Get a Bar Bandwagon, by the way, by Dream Junkies.
Oh, okay, word.
Yeah, that was the Christian rap group that I had heard, and I was like, holy God, these guys are good. And then, you know, someone was like, all right, you need to check out Lecrae. And I was like, fine. Because I did the NF review. And it was also sort of like, he's sort of subpar to me, like, as a rapper, you know? And then I heard Lecrae's latest album, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this dude is nothing to play with. Okay. And when I did my review, I basically just, you know, laid bare that, like, yeah, I had my preconceived notions, but you know what? He proved me wrong. And I think it's a good critic that can say, you know what? I was wrong.
Basing things off of what we like is totally different than basing things off of, like, how good they are. Like, there's a lot of great stuff that I just don't like. Like, I've never been an LP fan. And he's a nice guy. Awesome producer. When I sleep, I'll sleep when you're dead. Everyone loved it that year. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't recognize it for what, you know, went into it or how, you know, impactful it is or the art that's in there. I just don't like listening to it. You know what I'm saying?
We were kind of the same way with Run the Jewels, actually, for the first two projects. We were like, they're cool, but like, I don't know what all the hype is about.
It really took for the third one for it to click with me. Like, I didn't hate Run the Jewels 2, but I remember kind of being like, I don't really see it. But then with the fucking third one, it was like a punch from off screen. It was that punch from the Gorillaz video. Right. I was bopping my head with my fucking tongue out, my LMFAO sunglasses on, and that fucking boxing glove came out from the left, from stage left, and fucking cleaned my clock. I like a lot of pop music that I know isn't any good. Like, there was a lot of stuff when I was growing up, I was like, man, this is fucking trash. And now I'm going back, I'm like, this is catchy as hell. Like, the lyrics are stupid. It doesn't mean anything. But this is fucking catchy and it's fun, and it's like the complete opposite. It's just like, you don't have to like good stuff, and you don't have to hate bad stuff. You know,
I think we have a tendency in hip hop to look at, and this is big shout out to Nima. He works at Empire Distribution, and we were having this conversation, and he put this thing and he framed something I think we all think about, maybe reflexively feel a lot of times, but he says it so simply, it's so amazing. He's like, yeah, you know, I remember back when I used to think the conscious rappers were the good guys.
Right. I
was like, yeah. You know, there's some pretty asshole conscious rappers out there. not necessarily that nice of people. You know, like, some of these gangster rappers are way nicer than these conscious rappers.
And then you'll find out it's like, you pay attention to a song that you hadn't heard before, and you'll be like, oh my God, that was really homophobic.
Right, exactly.
Like, some of the most homophobic, sexist lines will be from these quote-unquote woke rappers, you know? Like, I was just listening to Wu-Tang Clan's latest album, right? Well, Wu-Tang's latest album, because apparently it's not...
Yeah, it was the Wu-Tang side project that was actually a DJ Mathematic, inventor of the Wu-Tang W Symbols album, featuring some Wu-Tang members providing decent verses, but not all of them.
There's a skit on there that's like called Family, and it samples Shah Ravali. And I was thinking about, I was like, yeah, this is a really problematic skit to have on here, talking about like feminism is trying to turn black women into lesbians or something like that. I'm just like, what? Where the fuck is this coming from? Right. And then I thought about it, I was like, they've always kind of had some sort of like weird element that was like on Genius's album, where he has that, where Killer Priest has that one song where he's like, yeah, life is a pool of sin with, corrupted with foolishness, and women with wicked minds who build picket signs to equalize abortion. It's just like, whoa. It's like, goddamn. Like that.
Yo, like,
write this out of nowhere. I don't know how to feel about this now. This doesn't have a, and then like, it's so funny to hear like other artists like, who is the Diggable Planets. They had, their album where they were like, man, it's like this couple came up to me and they were talking about how, they weren't able to support their child, but because of the government, they won't allow them to be able to get an abortion. And it was like, yo, dude, it's just, men trying to tell women what to do, man, and it's all bullshit. And I was like, holy shit, I was not expecting a 90s rapper to say something like that. Like, it's so weird, like, Diggable Planets. I mean, I know that they're more like, considered like hippie rappers, but I never thought of them on that level. And it's weird how like they're more progressive than like this Wu-Tang collective that's like, is supposed to be like, we're this revolutionary, different ideology and mindset, Although I think they're both sort of like followers of 5%, I think, weren't they?
I'm not sure about Diggable Planets.
No, because
I wouldn't be
said,
surprised.
I got crew kids, 7 and a crescent. I thought that was a reference.
Oh, yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah. That would definitely be it. Yeah, Nations of Gods and Earth. I got it. I'm working on a piece right now that's looking at Islam in hip hop, and when I start researching that, I started the interview portions of it, but I haven't got to the part where I'm looking at all the artists in each vertical or whatever. But those guys, Diggable Planets, man, I feel like they should have been bigger just because I felt like they were on the zeitgeist with the whole jazz stuff, you know what I mean? They could all rhyme. Their B-sides were kind of mediocre, but they had some joints on there.
Dude, their second album was fucking incredible. Like, I did an episode on them for Cool Like That, right? And did you ever notice that every line starts with a pronoun?
No, I've never noticed that.
I'd never thought about that before until one day I'm like listening to it and I was like, why are they talking like that? Because you know he says like, us throw a rush when we started playing classics. He gets the beats and the da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, why do they keep...
You did the cool on the fattest hip-hop record.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, shit. He touched the beat, said 60 to the sound. She frequency, fatter Joyce got on the dang, son. I never even thought about this before. That's some rap critic stuff right there, man. See, that's why I fucks with you, rap critic. That's why I fucks with you.
And it's so fascinating because it was like, they just thought of that. And, like, they didn't tell anyone what the style was, but, like, that was them experimenting with the style. And I find that fascinating that it's like, people were just doing that more back then. Like, experimenting with new styles because because what they had to push back against was the 80s style, which was very sort of boxed. You know, it was like, da 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 da. You know what I mean? And it was just like, all right, we're not just trying to say something that works over a beat. We're trying to actually be better lyrically than that person. And, you know, I'm pretty sure that all sprung from, like, Rakim and, like, Big Daddy Kane, you know? Or it's just like, oh, they're not just rhyming. They're rhyming within the rhyme, you know?
I noticed in the 90s there was a lot less rappers telling me that they were in the USA and they were telling me what they were there to say. There's a big drop-off of that.
We're picking on old school. It's so much fun doing that sometimes. I think, you know, there's, what's his name? Donald Glover. His stand-up comedy special is hilarious. I don't know if you've seen this on Netflix.
Oh, yes.
He's always like, you know, people talk about old school rap as like it's all great. No, it's a lot of times it's really whack. Like, I went to the hat store and bought a new hat.
No, I find that kind of fascinating as well because you made a video, or wait, was it Merce that made the video? It was like, wait, there's like two channels, but are you in charge of the Hip Hop DX channel?
But yeah, the breakdown that Merce hosts, yeah, that's the show I created. It's the same show.
Okay, so that's your baby. That's your baby.
Yeah, it's what I created, yeah.
So there was one episode where he talked about like, you know, people always talk about how like, you know, the old school used to be better. You know, it used to be smarter rappers. And it's just like, well, you know, let's take a look at this clip where it's just about like saying shit to rock a party. And it's just like, you know, and it's the point that I've been trying to make in my episodes. Like, but I try to do it in reverse because what people like to say is, people who are, that just like to listen to newer music and mainstream shit, they go like, oh man, you fucking backpack ass rappers only like the 90s ass rappers when people were all super lyrical and shit. And, you know, my point I can't remember which episode it was. I think it might have been the MC Hammer episode, but where my point was that it's like, you know, rap it's like rap has not always been super lyrical and it hasn't always been about parties. It's always been both. It's always been like, cause you know, like you look back, we had the message, but we also had fucking Rappin' Duke. Like, has anyone ever gotten back and really listened to that song? That song is horrible. I was like, it's really bad.
I think the things that make the golden era stand out are things like how people didn't want to sound like other people.
Yeah.
Like that's a very real thing that I'm not sure is discussed often enough when we compare these two eras. Yeah, not to say that everybody was lyrical or unlyrical or that people didn't have a good time and now they only want to have a good time. Mm-hmm. It was just really bad if you were copying other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And that plays into that. To me, that's the subtext of when we look at the difference in these eras, because when you had so many people pushing so far to do brand new things like whole songs that begins with pronouns, you know, or like internal rhyme schemes, like these are kind of things that actually do help not only push the culture forward, it adds. What's the Lupe line? Did you improve on the design? Did you do something new, right?
Yeah.
Not only add to what's been there, but also separate yourself from everyone else.
Exactly.
And
like, here's the reason why you need to listen to me, because I'm doing what these other people aren't doing.
You're offering something different, right? Now, the only problem, like, you know, because I thought that was a good video for Murs, you know, I don't know if it really addressed that. And so, like, you know, when he's looking at, like, Migos versus DOS Effects or whatever. You know, the difference is DOS Effects was doing a style that hadn't been around.
Yeah,
Migos
that's a good
is
point.
doing Lord Infamous.
So it's
that's
on
the
top
difference.
of, so compacted on top of the idea is like, it is weird. And there was like, there was a time in the early 90s where it was like, make a song where rap songs were either like super political or they were completely ridiculous. You know, they want like, They Want Effects is really ridiculous. Hip-Hop Junkies is really ridiculous. Method Man by the Wu-Tang Clan, that first single, it's kind of ridiculous. It's just like, why are all these references just in here? They don't really mean anything. It's just ridiculous. But it's the idea that it's like, no one's talked like this on a song like this before, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they made it a hit. So, you know, it's like that kind of stuff, I think, is what I think about when I think about the true difference. Like stylistically, yeah, man, but there had to be a Model T.
Somebody had to be the
suck.
first to do it in the first place. Yeah.
Right. Like the Model T is a terrible car. There's no car that I want. You know, there's no car that I would trade for a Model T.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean like the Model T was like suspect. What? Everyone else had horses.
Yeah,
Model T didn't need to drink water.
I think it's funny how hip hop is so rich in like originality and why that's so important. But meanwhile, like the song that most people would consider to be like the first major like rap song, like the oldest one they can name, is a total ripoff.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
With fucking Rapper's Delight. Like a whole verse is just bitten from somebody else that nobody knows now.
Name. He didn't even change the name. Well, I'm the CASA, the NOVA, the rest is FLY. I was like, but they said your name was Big Bang Hank, but God damn it, you didn't even try.
There was a video, and I want to give him a shout out because we've had him on the show before. Great guy. D-Respect had a video about the Little B and a Boogie with a Hoodie situation, and he kind of started off by talking about how with modern rap fans, originality isn't as important as being a good guy. And I thought that was a really interesting point. He brought up an example of Bodak Yellow being such a big hit and no one really paying attention to the fact that it's like
it totally rips off someone's style, yeah.
And they were like, hey, you know, it's okay that Boogie with a Hoodie isn't exactly like the most original, but now that he goes ahead and punches a motherfucker for no good reason,
the unoriginality gets used as an amplifier for their shitty behavior.
Right, exactly.
Like, not only are you shitty, but oh yeah, you also did this.
We reviewed a Lil B album on the show a while back, and we still get comments about it because we were candid and we were honest and we said what we thought about the album, and Lil B fans are still crawling out of the woodwork to tear us to shreds over it. But, and I posted this on Twitter, I said, you know, for all the hate we gave the album, I would never advocate someone going out and beating him up.
When I saw the video, I was like, wait, why is this happening? That's the first thing you ask, right? Like, why did these guys decide to just beat him up? Because of this tweet, and I sent it to you. All these New York rappers are sounding like Dej Loaf and Future. And the thing about it is, it's like, I mean, like, how can you get mad at that? Like, it's not like, whoops, what an accident. I accidentally sounded like the most popular rapper. Oh, wow, what a coincidence. No, it's like, dude, just own up. You of course you were trying to sound like him. You know what I mean? But it's like, what's funny is that being original is not the problem. It's being called out for not being original that these guys took issue with.
I don't think Kodak didn't, when he put out that video where he said, at first he was mad, but he's okay with Bodak Yellow.
Well, I think he's okay with Bodak Yellow because she's a woman. I honestly think that's it. Like, if it was a dude biting his style, that's competition as an artist. But I don't think he feels like a female artist is competition. That's just my theory to throw out there.
Like, she gave him credit, though. Like, she straight up said that, like, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, like she also wasn't denying it.
When Drake was biting people's flow, even if he had said, like, I got a British artist on my songs and I'm still biting their flows, people still got mad at him for it.
Is Kodak Black getting writer's credit on Bodak Yellow? If he's getting royalties, then that's another reason why he wouldn't care. Yeah, it's like, if I'm getting paid, I'm getting paid. I don't care.
Right.
It's jumping to conclusions to assume that people don't care about someone not being original if the song is better. Like, I personally don't care that Bodak Yellow is derivative because I like it more. Now, I don't know what that says about me, if that's like a shitty opinion, a shitty take, or what, but at the end of the day, it's like, music is, meant to be enjoyed, and if I enjoy one artist more than the other, and it just so happens that the songs are similar, that's not my fault or my problem, I wouldn't say, I'm just taking it in, I'm a consumer.
Billboard gives credit, says that Kodak's getting credit for Bodak Yellow.
Now then. It's all good then.
Well, I thought that was the irony. I thought that whole fight was ironic. We talked about this on All Out Show yesterday. And I agree completely. Like, this is an era where people don't care about biting. So why are they fighting?
I think that is interesting how we're oddly okay with this, where like 20 years ago it would be like, fuck you for taking my style. But I think that also plays into how back then it was like, New York had a sound. West Coast had a sound, and so it's like, all right, not only would you be biting this other place over here that I know you're not from because you're from over here, but also you are not that person and you're trying to sound like them. But I think just like the fact that we're in a more open world now, because there aren't regions. The only region is the internet. You know what I mean? Like, so part of that brings us together because it means that people can mix styles without having, like, it's the collapse of ownership in one way because, this is now inviting more creativity. This is now inviting, like, well, hey, maybe this other person over here would have had a good idea with what to do with that sound, but he would never be able to get it because he has never heard it. So now we're allowing more people to do it. But then at the same time, there's that issue of being derivative of, okay, but just because you are doing that style doesn't mean you're not supposed to bring something unique to it. So when you're doing this style and you're just doing what they're doing, well, that's whack. But I think where Cardi B kind of bounces off from that is, first of all, she has a different aesthetic than Kodak Black. He's a really dark dude. She's a really light-skinned woman who's partially Latina. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just a different perspective that she's going to be coming with anyway. She's also not really talking, like, she's not talking about the exact same sort of stuff. So like if she had like the really weird high-pitched voice and sounded like she was like fading out of reality with her flow, then I think it would be more justified in saying, yo, she's being derivative. But the only thing she's doing is really using the flow. But she's not, you know what I mean? And she used the word honestly, but like, it's not really trying to take his spot necessarily. Like if there was another dark-skinned dude who came out, and had the fucking, curls and everything like that, like, then I could see you getting mad. Like when 21 Savage got mad at 22 Savage. It's just like, okay, you're literally taking my name.
I also think that, underneath a lot of this is the impact that hip hop overall has on culture, or hip hop culture, being the reason why we have as much care for most of these artists now as opposed to previously. I'm not necessarily sure, for example, music is the gateway into what we know about these people anymore, as much as, somebody was fly on Instagram and then they put out a project, or they were on a reality show and then their music blew up. So the secondary, but it's all still within the same culture. It's all still within, things that matter in hip hop. That's why hip hop's number one, because nobody cares what country music artists are doing when they're not performing a country song or whatever.
It's not just, I made a pop song that someone else, well, I mean, we're kind of getting into that too, but like, it's not just like with pop stars, it's understood that they didn't write the lyrics. But with this, it's like, I know that you did this. I know that you wrote this. To some extent, I associate your music directly with who you are and how you live your everyday life. In fact, rappers talk about it all the time. And so hip hop was, the way it was designed facilitates it being able to work with social media. Because the raps blend in with the Instagram. You know, like the rappers are talking about how they got, you know, the chains and the shit. And then, oh, wait, he really has it on Instagram. You know, like a lot of country singers, a typical thing, like, what are they talking about? Like, oh, I'm with my girl, or, oh, we're kicking back and having some brews. But that's not the same as like, yo, he talked about being in a fly-ass mansion, and there he is in a fly-ass mansion.
It's the same reason why cats, you know, go get a whole bunch of fake money and just put it on the gram. And, you know, it's, one, people like to see it. The money phone is the new gold chain. It's how you show you show how you ballin'. It's a glimpse into the extreme excess that we all watch on every level anyway. Like, part of the reason I think Trump is so compelling, even if whether you're a fan or not, is like this mug will go out there and pretty much say anything. Like, there is excessive range to whatever, because everything that he says is the best. I used to think it was hilarious how all reality shows were in mansions. Like, even Joe Millionaire, which is about the broke guy, you know, was in a mansion.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so, you know, just culturally speaking, we like to see that kind of stuff. And only thing difference now from before is we see that stuff first a lot of times. Like, before we even get it, even before we care enough to click on a song from somebody, we probably
you
clicked
see the lifestyle before you see the music.
Exactly. So in that regard, the music truly is secondary down to our critiques of it. Yeah, I know he's biting, but yo, you seen him on the gram though? He seemed cool as hell. He be dropping jewels, you know. I'm just really inspired by the life they live. Oh man, they said some really cool stuff 2 weeks ago on the Snapchat. So we don't necessarily care as a population, because that's not even our entry point.
DJ Khaled is a great point. If he could find a way to monetize Snapchat, he would be like a billionaire by now. But my problem with DJ Khaled is like I don't have a problem with this idea of like lifestyle preceding the music, as long as the music is still good, right? Because like that's all I really care about. If you can do whatever you want that's an accessory to the music, as long as the music is nice. But my problem with DJ Khaled is that it's like, where is that personality that he puts on Snapchat when it comes to his albums? That's my problem with him, right? Because when he puts on albums, all he says is, you know, iconic, legendary. He's not like talking all that wild shit that he does on Snapchat, you know? Like, so it would be cool if he did put that into his music. Like, for me, I don't care about, you know, being mainstream or underground. It's like, just make it interesting. What I wanted to say, like, going forward through that, like, Lil B did something that was kind of incredible. First of all, A Boogie and PNB Rock are punks. I'm gonna say that right now, because, like, oh, big man beating up one dude with 10 guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a man to me. Like, if I saw, like, he squared up and it was like, yo, I'm about to come see you, bro. Throw them hands. You know, it was like, all right, at least he's like giving him a fair chance. You said some shit about me. I feel like taking it to this extent. But rolling up on somebody with 10 dudes and stomping the shit out of him, it was like, dude, like, what the fuck? You know?
I think we know how, you know, I think there was, at some point, that conversation escalated, right? I can see them approaching Lil B, what's up with that tweet? And I can see Lil B saying something like, if you feel like it's about you, then what can I do? Like, I could see that happening.
And that's a smart way to say it, too. Like, oh my God, did I tell you, you know what this reminds me of? Like, when I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. It was like, when I was in high school, someone passed a note along to me, and it was really insulting, right? And I was like, well, if I went to the teacher with this, you know, the person who did it's not going to confess. You know what I'm saying? So what I wrote on the back of the note, I said, whoever wrote this was congealed in a gutter and has no mother. And I passed it right back to the person who passed it to me. And then the guilty dog barked. You know, they were like, yo, fuck you. What are you doing talking about, like, saying I don't have a mom? I was like, I didn't say you didn't have a mom. I said whoever wrote it didn't have a mom. Now, that person who wrote that insulted me first. So, you know. That's some triple word score retaliation right there, man. Congealed. Wow. But it's like, and I went to the principal's office and they couldn't get mad at me because it's like, I didn't. Like, all I was doing was retaliating against a person I didn't even know who it was anyway until they confessed.
That's hilarious, yo. I think I had an encounter with a very famous rapper. I guess not very famous, definitely famous rapper at a Grammy after party one year. And, I walked up to him because I've been trying to land an interview with this guy for a while and tried to do it all the right ways, went through his label, went through his publicist. And so I saw him at the event. I'm like, yo, what's up? Yo, man, Justin with Hiphop DX, would love to sit down and have an interview. And he was like, Hiphop DX, huh? And I'm like, yeah. He was like, y'all left me off of your top 25 list. I'm like, oh, you mean our year-end list? He was like, yeah. I was like, you're number 26. And then he was like, he got really upset. See, you don't even support me. I'm like, man, I was like, man, when's the last time that I've seen you talk to any blog? I hadn't seen you talk to Two Dope Boys. I haven't seen you talk to All Hip Hop. I don't see you talking to Hot New Hip Hop. You don't talk to any blog at all. You only talk to radio and television. So, I don't understand why you're expecting us to show you all this love. When we actually do, we cover your turkey giveaways. We cover your new music when it comes out. We post your songs. But when it comes time to sit down and do something cool and exclusive, you don't have time for us. You win Hollywood. And that's when his entourage got really upset at me. And so because like now I've called, somebody Hollywood. It's not a good term, but you see how that can escalate. Like you can see how that can escalate. We didn't get into a brawl. It pretty much ended with him whining to his publicist later on.
If someone came up to me and was like, yo, here's the receipts for why I feel this way, then like you should be able to go like, you know what? You're right. My bad, man. Like, hey, let's set something up. Instead of just going, well, I don't like that you critiqued me.
Right. I mean, it's you never know how things go. I think that tweet's enough to make 10 people approach one guy.
I don't think that's enough. I think if you're going to say something like that, you need names.
I don't know, man. Look, again, like, especially because, my family's from New York. I lived in Brooklyn longer than I lived anywhere else. And Brooklyn, New York City is a very, proud place. Like pretty much any region, but, past 10 years, New York's been taking L's online. All you do is see people dropping the funniest regional memes are always about New York. Everyone's always talking about New York fell off. New York ain't coming back. People will consciously, dismiss all of the successful artists from New York. They don't consider Nicki Minaj and all these things, French Montana, A$AP Rocky. No one really considers them. But when you come from that, and you're from the Bronx, the place where it was born, and so if there's a last bastion of some place that really cares about being original, it's probably the Bronx.
Did New York not have it coming in the 90s and early 2000s when they were quick to shit on West Coast and Southern rappers? Did New York not have it coming to the ego when they were like, nah, fuck what the Southern cats are hollering?
100%, but you can't blame everything on Hillary Clinton. It can't always be Hillary's fault. Everything that popped up can't be Hillary. We're not even talking about motivation. We're not talking about whether something's justified. We're just talking about whether or not you can see why we get upset. I think it's a great point. This generation does not care about originality first. They care about whether you're cool, if you're a nice guy, the lifestyle you're living, all that kind of stuff. But if there is one place that probably at least got an uncle in his ear, probably at least got some, old dudes say, this is cool, man, but this sounds like Deja Vu. Imagine putting out music and everybody older than you that's in your life who taught you everything about rap, all your cool older cousins, Shaz, for example, are like, oh man, this is cool, it sounds like Future though. Oh man, this is cool, it sounds like Deja Vu though. Then you go 3,000 miles to San Francisco, run into Little B, who is the Gucci Mane of like this internet era or whatever. And he's like, and you see a tweet and you see him and you're like, hey man, what's up with that tweet? There's a conversation, somehow it escalates. I'm not sure how crazy it is to see someone get stomped.
If you hear somebody saying like, yo, that's good, but it sounds like so-and-so was like, well, were you inspired by them or not? Like, I do not believe that these people honestly were like, nah, I'm not trying to sound like anybody else. I'm just trying to sound completely original and whoopsie daisy, it sounds like the popular artist that's out right now. Like, that's absolute bunk. So it's like, if you're gonna be mad that somebody's comparing you to this person that you were trying to sound like because you wanted to be popular, like, don't get mad about it. You know what I mean? Like, you wanted the fruits of the success of sounding like someone who's popular. Don't get mad that there's other stuff that comes with it too. Having to take it on the chin that, like, you know what? Hey, I'm trying to sound like them. But you could at least be like, but what they're not doing is this. Like, this is their style, but what I'm doing is this. At least, like, explain so it's like, because if you explained and went like, all right, he's saying that I'm trying to do this style, but actually what I'm doing is expanding upon that style because what they haven't done is this. That's gonna be more respectable than, and more able to get people on your side than, you said it sounded like that, now I'm gonna hit you. Because now, what everyone onlooking is thinking is, he got to him. He got to him, so he must be right. You want to know why? Because he felt like he couldn't approach him with words. He felt like he had to hit him. He felt like he had to shut him down instead of proving him wrong. So now, everybody on the internet, and you know how it is, like, nowadays, if you're starting a fight with somebody, you're not seen as the good guy. You know, like, there was a time in the 90s where it was sort of ambiguous when KRS One threw, what's his name off the stage, Prince B. You know, like, there were some people who were like, yeah, but he rapped for the real hip-hop, so that's why he did that. But nowadays, it's like, there's absolutely no pretense. Like, you did that because you were insecure. That's the reason why you did that. And fucking, blessings on Lil B with the way he responded. Like, he really had his mettle tested, and he came out and he was like, no, I don't wish, pain or strife on that person. I don't want to see anybody try to come get revenge, nothing like that. He was like, I just want there to be peace. And fucking P&B Rock and other dude has fucking egg on their face now because now they look like assholes. Because if Lil B had retaliated, it would have been like, all right, now it's on. We're going back and forth. Rap beef, you know what I'm saying? But now it's like, oh shit, I hit this guy and now he looks like the good guy. You know what I'm saying?
I think about, you raised a great point with Drake earlier. And the thing I think about with like artists like Cardi B or even a Boogie in this context, when I think about them biting, quote unquote, all things considered, they're new artists. And the other thing that's different with this era versus previous eras is we see all these kids with all the warts on them. Like, we don't see them.
That's a good point.
We don't see them dope yet. We haven't seen what they're going to eventually evolve into or what, tends to inspire their future flow. Whereas with someone like Drake, he came up sounding like some other people, got his own thing, and then every time something new hot comes out, that's what he sounds like now. So that's a difference when you have someone who is as successful at the top of the heap and they've started getting all these other people helping them do everything. That's a different conversation.
It's funny, like Drake, with that Despacito and all these other Spanish hits, Drake gonna come out speaking Spanish next year. That's gonna happen, right? Champagne Papi, hey, he's back.
Something we were talking about where we're seeing a trend already. We heard some shit, a lot of shit, rather, about Triple X. Now we got this about fucking A Boogie, P&B Rock. Is this the most controversial double XL freshman class? It's like just checking them off as we go. We were talking earlier, it's like, I really don't want to hear shit about Amine because I'm rooting for him. Like, I really like that album, and I'm like, please don't do anything fucking stupid.
Keep your head down.
That might just be the best way to go about it at this point.
So this was a Patreon request by Cedric Winters, who also requested me to review the single Blessings from his latest album.
Oh, okay.
So this guy's really into Christian rap, I guess.
It's funny. Every so often we get the folks who just, like, they're really big into, one very specific thing. Like, I know we've had one dude request, like, 3 Doomtree related projects. And it's like, all right. I mean, I'm not about to tell you no, because you're helping us out on Patreon, but it's like, I got it. I see you. All right.
Justin, what did you think going into this project?
We didn't even say what it was.
Oh, yeah, this is Church Clothes 3 by Lecrae from last year. I think it's a mixtape that he released last year. Mm-hmm. So what did you think of it?
Going into it, I didn't have any expectations, really. We covered a lot of Reach Records stuff, a lot of Christian hip-hop at DX. Jake Payne, the previous editor-in-chief, was, he has a relationship with them, and he's amazing at finding aspects of hip hop that are under discussed, and I think that's probably where the relationship was built at some point. I'm not sure. But on our staff, we had Victoria Hernandez, who was a huge CHH fan, Christian hip hop fan. So she was on that beat, and she would cover stuff for us that was happening in that side of the culture. And so Lecrae was always one of those artists I respected because of his company, because of his, business savvy, because of his ability to make a lane that didn't exist before, and the heights he's been able to reach because of that. But I was never really like a, Lecrae. I'm not an old Lecrae fan or anything like that. I've listened to his projects. So in that regard, I didn't have any expectations. I was like, oh, here's another Lecrae project. I think I'll take a listen.
Yeah, I was in the exact same boat because, for me, well, not the exact same, but remotely the same, because I wasn't familiar at all. So this was just my first taste going in. So I had absolutely no expectations going in. I wasn't sure what this was. I saw that the album was called Church Clothes. I wondered if it was going to be like a Christian hip-hop thing or if not. And for me, I've talked about this in the show before, and this is just a completely personal preference, is that I myself, I'm not too big when it gets really over beating you over the head preachiness in the music. And that's not even just say it's bad if it does. Again, it's just personal preference for me. And most of the time, the albums that we review on the show, they always toe that line so much. I know, I guess if you're gonna put Chance as being probably the most that we've talked about, and I don't know, Arrested Development, because even that was kind of it was kind of toeing the line so much. This fell in the middle for me. It wasn't, there were times where I wasn't sure, is what I'm saying. I didn't know until I looked it up after listening to it the first time that it was even supposed to be, falling in the genre of Christian hip-hop, because there were times where it can go either way, especially since we've been talking about, too, we talked about this in the show before. Just because a rapper is a Christian and they talk about things in the songs doesn't exactly mean, that it falls into that category. Where that they want to be considered in that genre. But I really, really, really liked this EP. Flew by, very varied in topics, which again is not often seen in the albums that we get to review. If they are talking about some conscious social issues or whatever, normally they only kind of fall into one avenue. Usually, I know, on Logic's, it seemed to be very heavy in the being biracial.
Did you know that Logic is half black and half white?
No!
I can't tell you how many fucking comments I've gotten.
Did you know? I did not. That is fucking news to me.
Right.
Other ones talk about police brutality. I know there was I think it was the Vic Mensa EP. I know you didn't listen to that one because that was the 1 week where we got our wires crossed and we both listened to different Patreon requests.
Oh wow!
But yeah, this one it was kind of all over the place in a very good way.
Yeah, I think what I appreciate. Lecrae's in a tough spot, right? Because he actually was CHH. He came up with Christian hip hop and is evolving into, I guess, more inspirational music or whatever. And I have had I inherently equate Christian rap with whack, like Derek Minor said in the video, right? I feel like that's our stereotype. And this definitely isn't that. But when I take this project outside of a Christian hip hop lens, that's when I question how good it really is. Because then I'm like, well, but is this really Below the Heavens good? You know what I mean? Is this Forest Hill Drive? I think that project is loved a little too much, but does it compete with Forest Hill Drive? And here's what this project does really well that I appreciate it. I like their history lessons, that Gangland song, I think it's called.
Right, that song was awesome.
That kind of stuff to me is amazing. Yeah, dog, gang started because we was getting lynched. Hello, yeah. Bloods and Crips came from the spook hunters trying to cross the street and beat up black people. You know, like it's a great example of another way to talk about stuff in rhyme, and which to me was a reflection of his like storytelling ability. He mentions like biblical stuff without saying like the Bible, or he'll start without saying like Bible verses or making quotes from the Bible. He'll say, you know,
he integrates it.
Yeah, he does that really well. And so I like that quite a bit, while still having like John Gibbs and, you know, on the project, like these are Christian rappers, you know, or CHH rappers or Reach Records or guys or whatever. Like, so the presence is always there, but it feels like as inspirational as, you know, a Kanye record, to be honest with you. Like Graduation to me is a really inspirational record. Just the way it feels, you know, and without necessarily going straight to some of his inspirations, or even like, you know, Yeezus, as angry as it is, there's a lot of, you know, religious sort of themes that rock through it without, you know, going straight into, okay, now we're talking about the Bible.
All of the songs, well, most of them that he does on here are sort of like, I'm trying to show you a Christian person in the real world and not a Christian person in Christian rap, right? Because like he has some songs that are just about him hanging out with his friends. And like, yeah, he starts off like, you know, he reads a Bible verse or two, you know, but that's not like the point of the song. That's just a part of my life. That's just real, you know? And like with Cruisin' or he has the bragging songs. Like he has those like with Sidelines or with dude, I loved Misconceptions 3. Good Lord. It blew the roof off with that shit. I was like, oh my God.
Great song.
So yeah, you know, and I wouldn't know. It was the chorus was a little confusing. Like he's like, I'm living life like you want to know what I know, and then in the background he's like, I don't know nothing. I was like, what? Wait, I don't understand. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But and then E40, you know, I think was it the Can't Do You? That was the one where I thought it was okay. E4, he had a dope, like, whole bunch of slang at the beginning of his verse, but it was like, overall, I thought that one was alright. It had that weird line where he says, my clothes don't match and my holes got a pants. Wait, I think I may have said it backwards. And it was just like, what? What did that mean? Why did you say that? That doesn't make any sense.
I was in the gym listening to the project, like, I actually had to stop my workout and pause it and just like really try to think if that made sense. I'm glad I wasn't the only one who raised an eyebrow, because I was like, I'll just let that go, man.
Dude, he's just clever and he's like dope. Just, oh my God, who's that had the guest verse on, he was just speaking on Gangland. He said,
Propaganda.
He said, yeah, where he says, delusional calling that system criminal justice where the rich and the guilty are safer than the poor and the innocent. Yeah. Why would we listen when American churches scuff their toms on our brothers' dead bodies as they march to stop gay marriage? Yo, we had issues with Planned Parenthood too. We just cared about black lives outside the womb just as much as in. I was like, oh shit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, man. He's a really talented lyricist, and he's got perspective. You know, like
yeah, it's not just about like follow the Lord and eat your peas. You know, it's like this is what the Lord's work calls me to do. It calls me to be revolutionary, and I think that's awesome.
We can't let it be 100%. It's impossible. I gotta say that I was loving the shit out of this album. I gotta say. Fucking Forever took me out of it a little bit.
Forever? Oh, you mean the one that was dedicated to his wife?
Yeah, like the one, like, short as fuck love song was like, oh, okay, alright. Like, I was just kind of waiting for it to be over to get back to the shit. I don't know if I was alone in that, but I was just like, alright. Like, it was such a weird change in pace, and right at the end, it was just like, I don't know, like, maybe if it was more towards the middle, but it just kind of felt like, yeah, okay, like, it felt like there was a little trip before you crossed the finish line. That's just how I felt about that one.
I mean, the production is my challenge, you know. I think, you know, it all just sounds really regular to me. Like, there's nothing, luscious about the production. And I tend to, but even though I feel like that's kind of what was going for it, like, like Freedom it sounded Bomb Squad inspired, for example, and all that's cool. It's just, and I'm a lyrics first guy, so I tend to think about the music secondary. But when I played this track for other people, played this album for other people, the first thing I notice is like people tune out because it's not because of his rhymes, it's because, the music sounds really regular. And maybe that's why it's like a mixtape.
I did notice there was a lot more life that I got from Misconceptions 3. Like, I was way more awake by that point than, in the middle of, like, Sidelines cruising, it is what it is. I can understand people kind of feeling like it sort of falls off music-wise. I felt like it was a solid enough group, personally. I would actually give this a solid 5 out of 5.
The project, really?
Yeah, I really liked it.
You loved it?
Yeah.
That's what's up.
I was just like, wow, I was not expecting to like fully enjoy this.
Yeah.
For any flaws that I did feel like it had, it was just like, it's solid enough to deserve this,
Yeah.
10 tracks, brief listen, it does what it needs to do and gets out,
I would feel comfortable with a 4 myself, because of the some shortcomings we had talked about. The one song kind of took me out of it. Yeah, like Justin had said, the production was serviceable, but I didn't think it really went anywhere. Like, it didn't exceed anything. It just kind of, like you had said, normal is a really good word for it. It was like, it was serviceable, it got the job done, but there was no like, wow, I need to re-listen to that one because that fucking, like, that beat was fucking fire or whatever. But like I said in the beginning, there was a lot of great shit being said on here. Covered a lot of bases. Did a lot more well than other albums that we talked about that try to achieve some of the same strides and kind of fall short. It exceeded my expectations overall, though, especially since I didn't have any going in. But yeah, I think it'd be comfortable with a 4.
Yeah, I'd go 3.5 on it. I think it's. I think the lyrics are amazing. I think the lyrics are really, really great. I don't want to say amazing because that's like, man, if the lyrics are amazing, why are they giving it 3.5?
Exactly.
They're really dope, man. And I appreciate his perspective. I appreciate where he's coming from. I like the stories he's telling. I like how he brings people in. I don't need Can't Do You. I just don't need it at all. I feel the same way you feel about Forever, for example. But my problem with Can't Do You is like, I just don't feel like it's the one song where I feel like he sounds the least comfortable, the least at home. It kind of stands out more than, I'm not even sure if it should be on this project. And outside of having E40 on it, it's a Bay Area track, and maybe he wants to ingratiate himself to that audience, so I can see the strategy behind stuff like that. But, we're looking at 10 tracks. I take away that one, I take away Forever. And that plus the music being serviceable, being really regular to me, that's 7. That's 7 out of 10. That's 70% right there if we're just going to add it up. But I go with 3.5 more so because I think that it's the things that I think it does really, really great. It does exceptionally well, right? Like, it makes me think. And I need projects that make me think, because when I've run into projects that make me think, I tend to go back from my own personal self. Those are the type of projects I tend to go back to in the future. Like, those are the ones that I tend to have the highest replay value. And for Lecrae to do that, and do that from a, I'm not a Christian rapper, but I'm a rapper who's a Christian, from a rapper who's a Christian perspective, he does it really, really well. I give it a 3.5. I also tend to look at projects a lot of times by like how, like, I feel like at its core, music is only as good as you want to listen to it. Like, if it could be a masterpiece album, but if I don't want to listen to it, how good is it really? Like, I don't know. It's a great thing. I just never want to listen to it. But so I end up looking at albums, like, where they work for me. Like, do they work in the gym? Can I smoke and ride to it? Does it work when I'm in Mac mode, hollering at a chick? Can this get me through cleaning house without me having to press skip a whole bunch of times? Like, the vibe that if an album can rock everywhere that I listen to music, yeah, it's a pretty good album, 5-tool album, you know? And so, you know, I'm not, even on that type of tip, yeah, I'm not really going to be hollering at chicks with Church Clothes 3 on in the background, you know? I'm not going to downshift into Mac mode to Church Clothes 3. Not that every project has to do that, but, like, you know, great projects do that too. Graduation, you know, you get enlightened and you can get some, you know, you can, you know, go on a date. You know, like, there's ways to do all kinds of things.
That about does it for this week's episode of the Going Off podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much, Justin Hunte of The Company Man, checking us out. I said of. I guess I could just say The Company Man. I don't know. The formalities there.
Justin Hunte is The Company Man.
Thank you very much for joining us in the discussion this week and the album review. Not typically done. Normally it's like, nah, I didn't listen, and you know, our guests bail. Not to their detriment, but that is asking a lot. Just come in, join us, have a fun discussion, listen to a full fuck album. It's giving a guest homework, and we don't normally do that. But if it's like, yeah, I already listened to it and I got opinions, then you know, that helps too. We had a disruption midway through, if we're gonna go inside, where we had an internet disruption that we had to come back and kind of find where we were. But you can't really tell, especially in editing. You won't even know what happened. It'll be like it never happened.
Word up. Yo, thank you guys for having me, man. This has been really, really dope. I appreciate it.
Is there anything you'd like to promote or plug before we head out?
Follow at The Company Man on everything. Make sure you check out Ambrosia for Heads, AFH, home team. Make sure you check out All Out Show on Shade 45 every Tuesday on there with Rude Jude. Yeah, man. I think that's what's... yeah, that feels good. That feels good enough right there.
Cool. And if this is your first time listening to the Going Off podcast, all of our old episodes are on SoundCloud and iTunes. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes. Just search Going Off Podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Help us out on Patreon if you can. And until next week, for the Going Off podcast, I'm Muse.
And I'm Rap Critic. And get the fuck out of here!